Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to the LaSala Show, episode 10, November 13th, 2020. My guest today is Mr. William Wood. He is a great friend, brilliant, influential friend, and I can't wait to see him again, but it was truly a treat to speak to him about an assortment of important topics. So that's coming up. Let me just start with some breaking broken news. I'll start with the NFL. I have to gloat on my Green Bay Packers for just a second. So if you want to fast forward, I understand, Saints fans. Rodgers, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, he now leads the league in passer rating, QBR, Pro Football Focus grade, all these, metrics, advanced metrics that all these nerds put together. He's the best quarterback of the league right now. He currently, in the last 40 games, has 75 touchdowns as opposed to only 8 interceptions. I'll say that again. 75 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 0 first-round draft picks that are wide receivers. Making chicken salad out of chicken shit, sirs. But he does have Davante Adams, who has now entered into the conversation of the best overall wide receiver in the game. I mean, the man's route running is impeccable. He can run the entire route tree. Rarely drops a ball. And just unselfish, just one of the greatest guys off the field. So he's very easy to root for. I'll put it that way. And this fun fact, Davante Adams has 8 touchdowns in 6 games. So he was injured for a few games there. Could have played, but Packers, medical facility, doctors, they're sort of conservative when it comes to, we need you for the playoffs. We don't necessarily need you for this regular season, week 6 game, whatever. Davante Adams has 8 touchdowns in 6 games. And the New York Jets have 8 touchdowns the entire season. The fuck is that about, New York Jets? Ay. So I am a betting man. But, I put 50 in at the beginning of every year. And then I make strategic bets. $3 here, $5 there. And look, I'm already up twice what I put in. And it's just a fun thing. It makes me actually care about games that I normally wouldn't even put on the television. One dude put $99,000 on the Packers to beat the Jaguars, which I do believe will happen. But his payout would only be $9,000. So let's say, knock on wood, let's say Rodgers gets hurt, Davante Adams spontaneously combusts, and the Jaguars, in fact, beat us. $99,000. That's tough. I don't know. I don't know if I have that much confidence because as we saw with The Packers and Vikings game. I think only one team showed up for that. The Saints and Buccaneers game. I think the Saints just wanted it a little more. It's interesting. Hey, gambling is it's a wild, wild thing to get into, but if you stay conservative and calculated, it can actually be a great thing. Fun fact about the NFL pertaining to quarterbacks. The following quarterbacks have less passing yards than Dak Prescott, who hasn't played in a month because of a gruesome turn away from the TV ankle injury. So these quarterbacks still don't have as many yards as an injured quarterback. Lamar Jackson, Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, and Cam Newton. But I think they all have more wins than the Dallas Cowboys. So in NBA news, Victor Oladipo reportedly asked to join the Toronto Raptors during a game earlier this year in front of his own teammates. To which I say, bye. Now, on previous podcasts, I think this was the 2-Up or one of the other podcasts I did, I told you that I took down all of his pictures off my wall. I don't want to see that man's face anymore. He's shown his true colors. He probably voted for Trump. I'm out on him. Speaking of the Raptors, because they in fact play in Canada, and due to the COVID situation, I'll say, they're going to relocate to either Newark, New Jersey, or Tampa Bay, and a long shot, Nashville, Tennessee. I'm just trying to think which one sounds best. The Newark Raptors, the Tampa Bay Raptors, the Nashville Raptors. I don't know. I like Toronto Raptors. Kind of flows. But I don't make these kind of decisions, ladies and gentlemen. In Major League Baseball, Tony La Russa, 76-year-old man. He is the Chicago White Sox manager. He's the guy that makes decisions on when to pull a pitcher or switch the lineup, all while wearing an outfit that the actual players wear. Which, by the way, let's just apply this to all sports. I mean, I want to see Sean Payton in a full-on football outfit, the pants and everything, the pads, everything. Because, I mean, some of these players that, they run into the sideline, why not have a little protection? Let's see, Eric Spoelstra, coach of the Miami Heat. Let's see him in an actual Miami Heat get-up. Or baseball can just do better. Anyway, Tony La Russa got a DUI back in February, and he had a "do you know who I am?" moment. And his exact words, I believe, "I'm a Hall of Fame baseball person." Which is, I guess, what you would say when you're drunk and trying to convince the officer not to give you a DUI. That didn't work out so well. But hey, he's still the manager of your Chicago White Sox. In world news, Japan is going to now allow scientists to create a human-animal hybrid. So what could go wrong with that, especially in this lovely year of 2020? In entertainment news, ooh, child. I watched Real Housewives of Salt Lake City last night. It was the premiere, and girl, let me tell you, there's a lot of repressed, depressed, and newly found sexuality. Also, a granddaughter who married her step-grandfather. Wait, a granddaughter who married her step-grandfather. It's instantly the best show of all time. I mean, they really went all out. And the lasting quote I'll take from that episode was, "You smell like hospital." And I feel like that's like the hardest diss I've ever heard. You know, somebody comes up to you and they're like, "Oh, your breath stinks. Oh, your tits are saggy. Oh, you know, you're balding. Oh, you know, your asshole stinks." Bitch, you smell like the hospital. That's a drop the mic moment. Alright, so we're going to get to my very good friend, William Wood, or as I know him, Bill. You know, I like a lot. It's a power move. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, William, but I know him as Bill. It's always like a good little slap in the face there. He really is a great friend. I mean, well, you'll hear it in the episode, but he means a lot to me. He was responsible for so many of the great things that happened in my life, and it was just wonderful to hear him speak about all these important issues. So, strap in and enjoy. And we're back with the LaSala Show. My guest today is Mr. William Wood, or as I know him, Mr. Bill. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing really good, man. Listening to my buddy from a long time ago. I haven't heard your voice in a long time, Jesse, and it's really good to hear you, my friend.
You too, man. And you know what? You are responsible for a lot that has happened in my life. When it comes to my friendships that I've made and my desire to play music in a band, and you were truly an influential person in my life, and I'm glad we're being able to speak on it.
Well, man, I can definitely return that sentiment to my bone, man. I mean, we're talking about ground patty days, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And just you know, I mean, those were wild times, man. And the people that I met during that period of time just mean so much to yeah, like you say, who I think I am internally. And man, you're a big part of that, my brother. It was a real blessing of my life to be able to sit on stage with you and play our hearts. You know, that was a big deal. You know, I was never really a comfortable guy on stage. And so, you know, just kind of getting to the creative person in me to be able to sing the songs that I need to sing and want to sing, I had to ride on other people's courageousness, you know. And so one of the things that just kind of blew me away, I'd get up there and bullshit, you know. I'd get up there and fake through a set, was just the damned coolness of Jesse LaSala. You walked out there, you didn't even, for you, it was just another time, another show, you playing something for the people. And you had that from childhood, dude. I mean, you the deal, bro. And, yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a big part of my life. I'll tell you what. It's good to hear your voice, my friend.
What was the name of our band? Thunderlip?
Yes, I believe that we were Thunderlip. Yeah, that was yeah. So that was Brett that came up with that name. Good old Brett Chagoy, man. He's still in town, painting, doing good stuff. Good dude, man.
Yeah.
Jack Dindy on drums, you know, steady, solid Jack.
Fucking right.
Jesse LaSala playing that keyboard, man, bringing out just the cool jazz funk. And me acting like an idiot in the front. It was fun times, man.
I think that's actually one of the most solid combinations for a 3-piece that you could ask for. Or 4-piece, rather.
Yeah, just really simple. Grab a riff and run with it.
Yeah, man. I felt like a rock star.
I'll tell you one of the things that man, you know what you really, like, dude, your ability to like comp through a lot of those just kind of accent chords really got me to thinking about songwriting in a new way, you know, about, you know, taking risks chordally, you know, different weird chords, trying to throw something different in there and make it a part of the song, make it a part of the structure. Yeah. The greatest thing about music is we get to learn from each other, huh?
That's that's it, exactly what I'm talking about is, you know, you really kind of started me on my path. And, you know, I've kind of taken a break from it, but it's still in there, you know? So I feel like it can always be resurrected. It's just, it becomes a part of you, and I gotta really, like, put you front and center for giving me the opportunity to, I mean, I was like, what, maybe 19, and y'all were all, you know, in your late 20s and 30s?
Yeah, I think I was 30. But, you know, I want to get back to what you just said. I found really, really kind of interesting because it kind of sparked something on my mind. And you're saying, like, you know, you've taken a step back, but it's still in you. And it's there for you to, like, wake up. It's still awake, you know. It's just like you know, I've been listening to your show trying to prep up and what you're doing here. And, man, the music's all the way through it. And the thing is, when we get back to this conversation about, like, making you know, and that was, like, part of what helped me become me. That era was part of what helped me, you know, speaking of Bill, into Bill. And the thing is it really comes down to kind of crafting our identities, right?
Exactly.
And, right, and the thing is, though, Jesse, that's an action. That's an action. It's not something that's a gift given to you. Life is just here, and it's out there in front of us, and you either act upon that and forge your identity and become who you are, or you don't. And that's the young Jesse I knew, just grabbing it and going and saying, who are we going to be today? You know, and so how that translates kind of into what I was kind of driving at is, oddly enough, and you know, I hate to talk politics.
Oh no,
but
trust
you know,
me. We're gonna get to that.
There's been an election recently, and so I've been thinking about a lot of, like, what that is and what it was. Ultimately, you know what I think I've been thinking about the most is this idea that, like, how could people see so much in a man of such low character for so long as to really kind of give up a piece of their identity to this dude, you know?
Right.
Right. And so it kind of gets to this back to this point, this question you're talking about, like, if you are too busy becoming you for me to really have a hand in it at all, except to be there in the show and grooving along with my brother. When we get back, I'm going to be starting the Greeks with these young students who I'm really fortunate enough. I teach at the Episcopal School of Acadiana, for anybody listening, way down here on the Bayou. And I've got some just great kids out there. I get to talk about Greek philosophy next week with a bunch of brilliant kids. And one of the immediate kind of ideas that we run into when we talk about, the dialogues or whatever, when we talk about, Plato and the stuff, is that every time Socrates opens his mouth, he's basically saying, virtue is not a teachable thing. Like if you're here to learn from somebody else's virtue, then you're already fucked.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You have to go through it yourself. It's only self-taught.
Yeah, you could only do it yourself. Yes. And so all we can do is have a conversation, man. And if we do that, perhaps the conditions will become right for one of us to be lucky enough to see that virtue and to chase after it, right?
I totally agree.
I think that's what was so magic about that era, Jesse, was that there were so many of us looking for that in our own ways. Becoming who we were.
So I was a youngster trying to fit in with an older crowd, and you were playing what role in that, as to, in what relation to everybody else in that band did we, kind of make this happen for however long it was? It still made an impact, and the whole point of, if you're going to bring politics into this, it can be as simple as a conversation. I just have little faith in some of the people who have already made their minds up.
Right. So I want to get back to this idea of identity that's driving this conversation and why I was thinking about politics in the first place. And I know that was kind of a weird jag off to the side or whatever, but it really does relate, I think, to something that I've been thinking about. And oddly enough, this is going to sound odd too, but this election's really got me thinking about The Little Prince.
Great.
And the author
great book.
The Little Prince. Say what?
Great book. I read it when I was like 12.
Yeah, right?
But it still rings true.
Yeah, and it is. And the whole story is about the pursuit of identity and understanding yourself. The guy who wrote it, Desalin Exupéry, forgive my French, this guy lived a fantastically awesome and adventurous life, right? He's a well-known author who knew how to fly planes when the Nazis attacked, so he went and fought Nazis. And he crashed a plane in North Africa and lived in the desert, and it's in that desert that he invents this beautiful story, The Little Prince, right? And even then, though, before he ever writes that book, he's thinking about identity and how that impacts how we look at one another, right? And how ultimately that impacts who we choose as leaders. He talks in other writings about demagogues and like what a demagogue is, the guy who doesn't really care about your party or your politics, but a guy who's going to use your party or politics to get what he deserves and what he needs or what he thinks he deserves. And he will trample all before to get that, right? And I think, who we're talking about, of course, we're talking about Pisistratus in ancient Greece. We're talking about our man baby who refuses to give up this election. Right?
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Right. And so the demagogue, the guy who plays upon people's fears of one another and their emotions to drive them towards whatever the hell he wants. And, so Desalin wrote about that. Right? Not just in The Little Prince, because I'm telling you, The Little Prince is a metaphor for identity and choosing to be active. And I'm going to get back to that idea that, Jesse, you were active in your pursuit of self. And back in the day. And that's why you don't fall for a bullshitter like Trump, right? Because you don't need to live through somebody else's identity.
Actually, I voted for Trump.
You've got your own that you crafted, right?
Bill, I voted for Trump.
And are still crafting. Say what?
I voted for Trump.
Oh, I know you did.
No, I'm just joking. I'm just trying to keep it light. Trust me. But isn't it weird? Okay, so isn't it weird that you have some relationships with people who now you have to consider suspect based on just a vote for a inhumane piece of shit human. But it goes beyond, like, okay, so back when George W. Bush was like the most hated president ever, I would do anything for George W. Bush at this point, but it's just like it goes beyond parties and, you know, oh my,
it does now.
I grew up Democrat, I grew up Republican. No, it's beyond that.
Our man has nothing to do with party.
Exactly.
But
he was a Democrat.
That's why he can
He was a Democrat.
That's why he can use it so well towards his own petty and childish demands, right? And so the thing is how do parties, which ostensibly, you know, if you have your party, you have your right to ideas, you have your I mean, please express your opinion. It's the United States of America. And the thing is parties form. They are natural things. You know, when you think about the guy who wrote the Constitution, James Madison, you know, Madison says that when they asked him to defend the Constitution, why should I get this through? And the first thing out of Madison's mouth was because it hurts party, because it keeps party from becoming the driver of our decisions, because it holds party at bay so that this tyrant, the demagogue, doesn't rise up, right? Like he says humans are naturally compelled to their ideas. And when we have our ideas, we line up with people who agree with us, which creates what he calls faction, right? He says that's inevitable. He says the causes of faction cannot be removed. He says the only thing we can do about it is to control the effects of faction, how we act, that fuzzy emotion that wells up when we are in an argument with somebody about something we feel as important as our republic. It creates these emotions, these angers, that then get preyed upon by the demagogue, right? And it all comes back to identity. It really is a problem of identity. In other words, like the problem with, like, you know, this guy wrote The Little Prince, man, he's out there fighting Nazis, right? And think about any group, when you think about like people whose politics equals their identity, there's nobody more that than the Nazis, right?
Absolutely.
Their whole politics is that my identity should exist and yours should not.
And how does something like that happen? Is it just simply based on lack of education?
Every citizen should be asking. Exactly, Jesse. How does that happen in a republic? How do we allow that identity to drive us so hard that we let a cruel and vicious mockery of a leader jab and poke us towards violence towards one another?
And is there any semblance of relationship between what counties and parishes voted blue and what voted red? Is there anything that lines up, do you think?
Oh yeah, certainly. I think that it follows the pattern that we've seen all over America, where we see urban centers voting blue, rural centers voting red, and the suburban community that surrounds that, like a donut around the urban centers, are slowly turning bluer. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and also in universities, like, you know, just people who are, I hate to say it, educated, and I'm not, because I don't have a college degree, but I can sniff out some bullshit, and I'm considered self-taught. You know, I listen to smart people, and I memorize what they say, and that's the best education I can do for now. Until college is free, and I can get a second shot at it, that's all I can do for now. So I try to be as informed as possible, and I don't pick a side, whether it's red or blue. I focus on the issues, and in this case, it didn't matter which was red or blue. It was just a matter of getting rid of the poison that was encapsulating the whole country.
Now you're talking. Yes. I think at the very bottom of all of this, what Madison is saying is that it's not wrong to choose a side. that we must, as citizens, choose a side. We must, agree to disagree over important issues and work on these tough things year in, year out with each other. That's how we bend the arc of the republic forward. But again, the factions cause anger because you're going to have people who are ideologically driven, people who are more compelled to want to work with blue or red, right? While the rest and most of Americans are like you and I, floating somewhere in the middle between these decisions and trying to make a rational mind up.
Yes, a rational revolution.
That anger in the background that collects and collects and collects. That's the stuff. That's the fuel of a Donald Trump. That's the fuel of a Marius from ancient Rome. That there's such a parallel in my mind to those two men. You've got the first. You can think leading Rome as a demagogue tyrant. Around 100 BC, around right the time that Julius Caesar is born. And the reason why he's able to control Rome like a tyrant is because he's able to play on the anger between the groups of people who have factionalized into these parties, the populares and the optimates. This guy comes along at a time when people are just pissed off enough at each other because of the parties that they're in. And he's just corrupt and vile enough and such a low-character human that he's going to use that for his own power and his own aggrandizement. And that guy, Marius, by the time he died, there were human heads. There was a human head hanging from the Senate podium, right? Right? That's where he led Rome to.
And didn't we just have
anger at one another was beneficial to his rule?
Didn't we have some Republican fuck that was saying that he wants to put a head on a stick? Or was he just being, euphemistic? Or
the rhetoric is already there. Absolutely. And that's one of the problems. Steve Bannon, what a piece of shit, huh? and that's one of the big problems here is that when we get down to it, let's call it what it is, fascism. And the problem with fascism isn't that it's an ism at all, because it's not really when you think about that in the sense of socialism or capitalism or communionism or Unitarianism. I don't care. Pick it. Ism means there's a system. But fascism ultimately isn't a system. It's a cult of personality. Like, the Nazis don't exist without Hitler. Fascists don't exist without Mussolini, right? It's a cult of personality. Personality. Identity. Right?
Okay, so
and in this case, a reactionary identity. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so when you're talking about identity, okay, and this is going to get possibly uncomfortable, what do you think about the Black Lives Matter movement in terms of identity? Where it's like, I'm black, therefore, this is my identity. I'm not a person, I'm black.
Right, okay, so what a complicated issue, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so my first thought when I go to this is this. Okay, think about like what the Nazis did here. They created their own identity into their politics. And then they used it as the oppressor.
Yes.
Now let's think about a black person in America. Did they create their identity as politics? I argue that they did not. That is something to be black in America is to wake up part of being in the political conversation, whether you like it or not. I can go take a vacation on a beach and nobody gonna sit there and recognize my honky ass.
Right.
They walk right by me. My identity, I don't have to worry about. Right? And so I understand the rise of identity politics. I think that Barbara Smith was a brilliant woman. And I just want to quote her, if you don't mind. So like in 1977, she gets together with a group of other young black women scholars, and they put together what they call the Combahee River Collective, right? And it's basically a manifesto. It's saying, well, this is what it says. And now this is spoken from a group of young black women. They write, "As children, we realized that we were different from boys and that we were treated different. For example, when we were told in the same breath to be quiet, both for the sake of being ladylike and to make us less objectionable in the eyes of white people. In the process of consciousness raising, actual life sharing, we began to recognize the commonality of our experiences, and from the sharing and growing consciousness to build a politics that will change our lives and inevitably end our oppression." Wow.
Okay.
You're talking about a group of bright human beings realizing their potential in a world that has told them that they are a problem all their lives.
Yes, and it's brilliant.
Right.
It's just
So,
ahead of their time, would you say?
So what?
Ahead of their time.
Absolutely. And that absolutely.
And that's part of the problem.
And in some ways, here's the point. Those sentiments are still ahead of the times if you're living in rural America.
Right.
Identity politics has grown into a very important avenue of the civil rights movement. I don't think that there's any other way but for a black American to finally say, hey, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I am black. Man, say it loud. I am black and I'm proud. And they've been saying this for 50 years, but nobody will damn listen and just allow their blackness to be Americanness in the minds of all.
So with the overwhelming population in the United States being Caucasian,
absolutely.
What is it that
63%?
What is it that white people are so afraid of, which is my feeling, of black people? Not my feeling like I'm afraid of black people. I'm talking about, what do you think it is about? What do you think it is about white people that they're just so turned off about black people? Like, what is it?
Well, number one, I think it's where people are. Number two, I think it's a socialization process. You know, if you live in an urban environment, there's a much greater chance that you're around people who aren't like you. And what you start realizing, okay, so again, back to this idea of identity. Like I wasn't joking when I was saying I've been thinking about The Little Prince. Think about the story here. It's a little boy who realizes, you know, that he's got to leave his little rock if he wants to understand anything about love, right? And about who he is. And so he gets off that rock and he travels around and he finds these other rocks that people live in, and these people have refused to get off their rock. And their rocks become these tiny little kingdoms, these tiny little prisons that they lock themselves into. And thus, none of these little guys ever realizes that the problem of the rest of the world, they become fixated on their own identity. The only way to break it out I really think what he's trying to tell us is the only way to break that out is to get off your rock. And when you think about like the urban environment in regard to that, it's impossible to be where you are. It's impossible to be in New York City and just have you on your little stone.
Oh, exactly.
You've got to understand other humans over time to live in that city. But I could move back to Tallulah, Louisiana, where I'm originally from, and sit on my stone and never have to see anybody who's not like me.
That's it right there. That's it. Exactly. And you know what? I grew up my whole childhood, all my best friends were either black, Hispanic, like, it never made sense to me otherwise to judge someone based on their skin color. I'm not even technically white. Let's put that out there. I'm El Salvadorian, 50%. You just can't tell it because of my translucent skin. But the point is, whenever you start dividing people by their skin, it's just ridiculous. There are stupid people all over the world, and they have different skin colors, and it makes no sense. I'm sorry, yeah. I'm getting heated over here.
And that heat is natural, and it's a natural effect of what you believe to be true and the injustice running through it. Now, when you are in control of who you believe you are, and when you are active, bending yourself through the pains of life and looking at its ugly scars and features and becoming more of who you are by facing up to the problems you have and not the problems of the rest of the have. You're the little prince rushing around the universe, man. You know, and that pushes you towards your identity. And ultimately, what does he understand? He understands all these other people.
Yeah, it gives them.
He feels
It gives
for
them
these
freedom.
guys,
It
man.
gives them.
You know, but just let me finish real quick this one thought, because here's where it wraps back around, right? Is that ability to outrun the passion of faction back to James Madison. You have the capability of doing that and seeing others for who they are and doing basically what Ben Franklin says, you know, when he says this, you know, I've experienced many instances in my life of having to change my mind when I found opinions on important subjects, which I once thought were right, but then found better opinions to believe in. It's therefore, the older that I get, the more apt I am to doubt my own judgment and to pay more respect to the judgment of other people. Most men think themselves in possession of everything that is the truth, and that whatever others think, it's only an error. You know, those are the people sitting on their rocks. But by going out being where everybody else is from and being able to get rid of that anger and that passion of not understanding those other folks and turning them into a monster, you short-circuit the very fuel that people like Trump feed on. Right?
So
I think this podcast is such a wonderful idea, because the more that you have these kinds of conversations, you know, I saw on the Facebook, it's like, man, you're inviting everybody to come talk to you, Dan.
Well, that's what
right?
I was about to ask next is, what would you tell? And here's the thing. I've invited Trump supporters to come on, and there are a lot that say they will, and at the last minute it's like, oh, I can't, whatever. And I'm like, cool, let me know when you're free. Haven't heard from any of them. I had one guy that came on, and, you know, he spoke his piece, and, you know, good for him. But what would you say to a Trump supporter in your best, you know, if you're trying to convince someone who is maybe just on the fence, what would you say? I mean, it really doesn't matter anymore because he's out of there. But
right,
just so they're gonna keep that mentality because 70 million people voted for this guy, and they're still the same people, no matter what.
Right. Okay. So, like I said, I come from a very small town, and it has its problems. I don't live there for a reason. There's there's a streak of racism that runs right down the heart of my hometown. But if we put that aside, there are people who have good qualities about them, right? We're talking about people who love their family, who love their country, who really want to do good for the world. They just don't have that experience of planet hopping yet.
Exactly.
But for most of these people, though, it's not their fault. Honestly, and like everybody I know from there who would hear me say this would hate to hear me say it, but it's just that, man, half of them are just broke ass people who can't get out of it, can't go out and have those types of learning experiences and those eye-opening moments of finding your real identity. Away from faction and the anger of party. I know this isn't a very good argument to give to the person. I'm more explaining the kind of ideas behind an argument I would give, and so it's a pretty crappy argument. But the thing is I think that the real danger isn't that these people are evil or bad. It's just that they got caught behind. Man, they still think that identity politics is in the far future, right? Talk about when I said earlier that, you know, some people like these ladies in 1977, Barbara Smith and the women who wrote with her, and you said they're ahead of their time, and I said they're still ahead of their time right now in places like Tallulah, Louisiana.
Right.
Right? And so it's like, how do you bring those people forward? How do you give those the experiences by which they can deconstruct the vision of the monster that they have made of everybody living in a city? And how do you get them to a place of kindness and patience to where they can think about their own problems that need to be fixed in real ways, in human ways, of staring in the mirror and thinking, how do I fix the systemic racial injustice that's in my own community now? And that's a conversation they're going to have, not the rest of the country. That's going to be their coming to Jesus moment, right?
Yeah, and how much of this loss do you think forces them to face that, or are they just going to put their head back in the sand and sort of just wait till 2024 and possibly elect Donald Jr.?
Damn, that's the question, isn't it? That's the question right there. How do we shake a citizenry awake to look across and not to, because here's the deal, like, just to get back to this thing of identity, right? Like so we have this statement by these young, awesome women who of color who are saying, damn it, yeah, y'all have always made it about identity. It's what it's always been anyway. So I think we're going to have our own say in it. Thank you very much. But as soon as that happens, you've created a dialectic.
Right.
In other words, as soon as you say yes, somebody's going to come along and say no. You've created faction. You've created party. It's a righteous thing. These women did what they should have done. But then the answer on the other side flips out, and it's this reactionary. You know, really the funniest part about it to me is that, like, okay, so the other faction, those who didn't ever have to think about their identity politics until these women said, yes, we did. Hey, who are those people? White dudes. People like me from Tallulah, right? And the thing is, though, you either deal with the issues that these other humans are bringing up, and you do it with kindness and patience and trying to see the point of another human being getting off your rock. Or you get real reactionary to it. And they'll say, my kingdom is the only way. The only thing I can do is light this lamp and then put it out, and light this lamp and put it out, because, you know, as my little prince's world spins, the whole day only takes 1 minute to revolve. I refuse to get off my rock. I refuse to see another way. I lock in myself in. And what do you have? You have this ultimately pathetic identity politics rise that we call the manosphere. You know the manosphere?
No.
You know, like it started about a decade ago with pickup artists, right? The PUA.
Oh,
yes. And then when they couldn't train themselves to treat then they're like, oh, sleep with me, and then they start calling themselves incels. You know,
yes.
we know these people, right? And they're tightly associated with places like 4chan and all this other stuff, where you see the rise of literal fascism. LOL.
It's fucking hypnotism. I mean, it's. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's bizarre, right? And so these guys who have this reactionary identity politics are now, like, you know, these aggrieved white dudes saying no women will sleep with me, and I find black people scary. And
right.
That's a you problem. You have to fix it. I won't do it. Wham, wham.
See,
right?
Okay, so this was sort of what I was talking about with why white people are so afraid of black people these days. It's like they're seeing these beautiful white women with black guys, and it's like, well, I mean, I'm frustrated. They don't like me. And it's like, hey, man, be better. Like, it has nothing to do with skin.
That's simple, dude. Get off your rock. Spin it around. Find out who you are through the process of finding out who other people are. And you going to be better, right?
Exactly. It's...
or you can just sit there and sink yourself into this idea of, like, man, like, I'm an incel. And you know, because there's a strong corollary to the alt-right here, right? I mean, that's who the alt-right is to begin with.
Oh,
It's
yes.
this weird, like, male, white identity thing, right? Fueled from the hot memes of 4chan. And the thing is it's like, it's so funny on the one hand, but on the other hand, man, this is, dude, reactionary identity politics. The reactionary component of that, that's the Nazis. And so it's this weird thing that we've got this just and real and necessary identity politics from our black brethren and all people of color in the United States who deserve a voice and need to be able to claim their own identities within the social and cultural and political discussion, because so many people have defined them for so long, right? And the thing is, it's just a aggrieved baby white guys. We just shut up for a while and listen. It's not too hard.
Yeah. And also, okay, I have a two-part question. How much do you think the 8 years of Barack Obama as our president factored into Donald Trump becoming president? And when will the Electoral College be abolished?
I think it's a direct corollary. I think it's a one-to-one. And again, I know I keep getting back to this thing about identity, but it's really what's concerning me, because we cannot continue to have a factionalized political discourse about identity, because when identity becomes our politics, then everything is an attack on who we are. Like, oh no, I can't get over that. And then it becomes something different. All these white guys, by trying to come up with this reactionary identity politics to a necessary identity politics coming from the left, coming from African Americans, especially in other people of color's sense, right? God, if we let that set the status quo, it's going to be bad.
It's sad. It's really sad. And okay, so but if the Electoral
But I haven't answered your question. I'm sorry. So let me answer your question. Here's the deal, man. When these dudes could not bear to look at a guy who doesn't fit their identity when they look in the mirror for 8 years, right?
And he was
It's
charming.
Like, oh, no, that guy doesn't look like me.
He was smooth. He was better than them in their eyes, right? A lot of these people who voted for Trump, that got Trump in, were intimidated by how cool and smooth and eloquent that Obama was. Yeah,
and you know, we can I think hit him on certain little things if we wanted to. You know, we could hit him on like, you know, I'm bummed that he gave up on a single payer, but you know, health plan. But what else is he going to do in the face of just the worst? The worst, just like, nope, we are not going to deal with this guy. No matter what you're trying to do, we're going to obstruct you. It was nuts. I've never seen anything like the obstructionism that we saw out of Mitch McConnell's Senate during his time in office. It was just bonkers.
Yeah, that guy needs to be shot in the face, and I'll say that every time I'm able to. And also, I'm not calling Obama perfect, because a lot of people.
Yeah, and he wasn't.
A lot of people blindly call him perfect.
And president in my life.
Oh, exactly. He was just above par of everyone else. I mean, he just kind of got it and did it. But there's no such thing as a perfect president. There just isn't.
And now imagine that guy who was exceptionally suave, exceptionally smooth, the kind of leader that you want your little kids. You know, that's the country I want my little girls to grow up in.
Yes.
You know, the Barack Obama vision. And when you've got all of that and like your basic identity has been perceived as a threat by the majority, man, all that's going to happen are these honkies are going to throw a fit, man.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen. We've seen 4 years of temper tantrum.
It's just embarrassing, like whenever we're the laughing stock of the entire globe. I listen to a lot of political podcasts where they have people calling in from Australia, London, fucking everywhere. And they're all like, how are we going to get this guy out? We're really concerned for you. It's like they're really actively following what's happening here. And I don't know. I just, if.
That reminds me of a guy. He's a buddy of mine. He lives in Dusseldorf, Germany. And he knows more about American politics than most people that I know. And dude, he'll come on your show.
That's
he would love
man.
to come on. He talks like a genre.
That's the point. That's the scariest point you've made so far, is that I've only learned so much about politics in these last 4 years just because of how insane things have gotten. Abhorrent, disgusting, just like it makes me want to leave the country. That my father moved here from El Salvador because he thought this was a great country. And
our country benefited from that move in so many ways.
Yeah.
I love you, LaSala, man. I think you're all great.
The point is, this is not the America he saw when he moved here looking for a great change in his life. And it's just very refreshing that, look, we haven't even talked about Biden yet, and we don't even have to, but it's better than nothing. And what we had was nothing.
The thing is, when I think about it, when I think about Biden, for what we're talking about right now, has maybe the most difficult job of any president in memory. When you think about, in my living memory, I suppose to say, when you think about everything that we've talked about, take that into context. And now you're supposed to step back in and be, again, here comes back in, like a more normative white dude coming to the non-temper tantrum guy. And he's got to be the president for 4 years, probably over a divided government. And at the same time, he has to navigate this extraordinarily explosive moment that we're having with identity politics and the possible, because the thing is like, the deal is this, man, like, we're lucky, as I saw one author write it today, we're lucky that the first shot at fascism, that the first shot of reactionary identity politics was done by the most stupid, bumbling idiocrats that could have possibly tried to pull off a fascist coup.
Exactly.
Right? What happens
if he was more
when
competent?
A guy as smooth as Narendra Modi comes in.
Exactly.
Look what Modi has done to India. He has nationalized so many people that right now the RJP, the Orange Party, has like this wing of it where they're raising little kids up in basically military camps.
Jesus Christ.
Right? So what happens when a smart demagogue comes along?
Yeah.
And the thing is, to get back to this example, the reason why of Rome that I compared Trump to this guy Marius, the reason why I picked Marius in the decline of the Republic and not Caesar is that Trump's not smart enough to be Caesar, man. He's like Marius, another guy who was just vain, not the sharpest tool in the shed, a complete sociopath who had the position and power to, and honestly, if I was to credit them one thing, the wherewithal to bend the conversation, the factional anger of the Republic towards one another. He actively was able to make Romans look at Romans as enemies.
He took advantage.
That's right.
Like he did with women.
And 50 years later, after his death, the Republic dies too.
Perfect.
And that's it, man. You know, it's like when thinking of Trump, my mind right now is on, you know, that famous Plutarch quote. That quote where he says, gosh, what is it? Something about it's clear to even the dumbest people that, I just found it. Look at that. Perfect. From Plutarch, writing about this death of this dude Marius, right? This is clear at once to the dullest witted man in Rome that so far from having escaped from tyranny upon the death of Marius, they had only exchanged one tyrant for another with Sulla. And what they're saying there is this, is like, this idiot Marius started the tyrannical run of the demagogue. The next one was worse. And then worse and worse and worse.
And that's my fear about Donald Trump Jr. is that he's actually a little more slicker, a little more better looking, a little more suavier, and he may take it in 2024. And that's
and the other thing is he's got a much more natural in with the rural population.
Exactly.
He's a hunter.
Yeah. It's frightening, man. I'm giving myself 4 years to make my plans to try to get out of this country. I don't see it going in a good way.
Where are we moving to, man?
New Zealand? Portugal looks good. What would you tell me?
Dude, you know, speaking of, you know, what's really been killing me just to my old musician buddy, dude, I've really been down the well of Portuguese traditional folk music. Fado. Have you listened to much Fado?
No.
My God. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to send you some music, all right?
Absolutely.
First of all, like the Portuguese guitar, they've got some real masters, man. I mean, some real masters of this form, you know. And there's different styles of it. Like one style, like, you know, only like 200 some odd years old. The other one that's more in competition is like a bit older, you know. And one is more of an instrumental. The other is sung. There's a lot more vocals in it. But the word fado itself, it just means fate. Like the music is meant to be played on a dark street corner with just a few candles burning, you know, and that's it. And you can hear like the Atlantic Ocean crashing into the rocky shores of Portugal, just a little ways away. It's such an awesome form of music. I'm gonna shoot you some of my favorites. I'm gonna collect them and shoot them your way.
Absolutely, and great
tonality, right? Like just moving through modes, like using like Phrygian and just in weird over minor keys and stuff like this. It's just fun music to listen to. Right?
Mr. William Wood, you should start your own podcast, sir, and I don't know why you haven't done it by now, but if there's one thing you can wrap up with this whole conversation to tell our listeners, what would it be?
I would say, be like a young Jesse LaSala. Chase your identity because it's yours, baby. It's yours. You go out and get it. And if you do that hard work, that work that sometimes makes you cry, but you get up and you keep going anyway, you're going to find yourself unfoolable by those kinds of guys we've been talking about, because you will know who you are. And if I ever see you again, you got to sit down and play my piano with me, all right?
I was about to say, I love you, and I'm gonna see you soon, man. I'm coming back to Louisiana,
yes, sir.
And we're gonna hang out.
Yeah, we're doing that.
And thank you so much for spending some time.
Yeah, it's just great to hear your voice, Jesse LaSala, man.
Hey, you are the master. All right. So whenever we link up again, I'm gonna give you a big hug and kiss. Okay? But I'll wear a mask.
That's a promise.
Peace, my brother.
Good to talk to you, my brother.
Good. And also, I forgot to say, much love. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Much love to Renee and the children. Everything good there?
Oh yeah.
Dude, I've completely glossed over.
They have been having a girls' night downstairs with each other, giving baths. I think I got two of them now, man. One's in ninth grade, man. Like, she's getting big, you know. She's on the swim team. She's kicking butt in the swim team. My little 6 years old, you know. I mean, she's just, you know, she chews on rocks. She sits in the front yard, just chews. She just picks like bricks out of the street, just chews on them, and just, you know, that's what she does. It's a pastime, you know. I don't understand it. Renee's beautiful and doing it in the world, man. She's working for the Department of Education right now, and what she does is she goes out and she's an inspector for childhood for child cares, you know, make sure that these people aren't doing abusive things. And man, next time you talk to her, she can tell you some stories about some sadness.
Trust me, I'm, you know, if it weren't for Trump, I would still have a job in child care, but you know how that went. But New York is a little stricter on their guidelines, but I would love to have Renee on, and God, please, I give my best blessings to that whole family and to you, sir. Thank you so much for coming on.
I love you, baby. I love you, man. You part of the family.
I'll see you soon.
Yeah,
brother.
And it's going to be cool to get that hug.
Oh, I can't wait to touch them nips.
All right.
Peace.
Peace, my brother.